Hello, everyone, and welcome to GreenBiz Studio. My name is Jim Giles. I'm the Senior Analyst for Food and Carbon Systems here at GreenBiz. And I have with me today Ben Allen, who is a Senior Vice President and Head of Global Market Development at Indigo Ag. Hi, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, so, I feel like Indigo Ag is a name that is becoming increasingly familiar, but I'm not sure that all of the viewers will know in detail what your company does. Just give us an overview of your activities.
Sure, happy to. So Indigo Ag is an agricultural technology company. We're a little over 6 years old at this point. We're still a private firm. And we have three primary business units. So we have a natural biological seed coating business, where we have microbial seed coatings for seeds that farmers can use in their fields. We have a grain marketplace, which is about digitization and online transactions for farmers and grain buyers so they can interact online with each other and transact. And then we have a carbon credit creation business that we're excited about. And I believe that's what we'll be talking about today.
Yeah, certainly want to dive into that. I also want to just ask you first about sustainable sourcing, because I spent a lot of time looking at activity in the food sector, definitely seeing this growing demand for ability to track and details around sustainability of the products that companies are growing. I'm interested to hear, where do you think this trend is coming from? What's driving it? And what role has Indigo got in making it possible?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the trend is coming from really three different sources of stakeholders. There are investors, which are increasingly interested in the ESG stance of the companies that they invest in. There are employees as key stakeholders that really care about the companies that they work with and for, and how they're addressing ESG needs, which of course sustainability is a key piece of. And then there's consumers, which are increasingly demanding that the food that they eat, the clothes that they wear, come from sustainable supply chains. And that trifecta of pressure, if you will, or concern or preference is really driving a lot more attention for sustainable supply chain behavior. And you're seeing companies react to that in real time, and with a lot of concern for the supply chains that they use to keep their businesses going. Obviously, companies have every incentive to have sustainable supply chains for the long term.
Yeah, and something we're seeing not just in the food sector, but really across all corporate sectors now is an increasing demand for carbon offsets. It's been driven in part by these very ambitious climate targets that are thankfully becoming more and more common. This is, as you said, a business that Indigo Ag is involved in. Would love to know more about exactly what you're doing there.
So Indigo is thrilled to be working closely with farmers and the purchasers of carbon offsets to put them together so that we can take advantage of sustainable farming practices, specifically regenerative and beneficial farming practices that both reduce the amount of greenhouse gas emissions, so abatement activities and sequestration activities. Photosynthesis is a very well understood biological process that pulls carbon out of the air and puts it into the soil. And when we can farm that way, when we can farm with those types of beneficial practices and change the environment in a beneficial way, then we have the opportunity to create carbon credits through a scientific process of capturing data, auditing that data in a very rigorous way, and then creating carbon credits which represent a ton of greenhouse gas that either would have been emitted and is no longer emitted, or is sequestered into the ground actively for long-term storage. And those carbon credits can be used and purchased by companies that want to offset their own footprint as they're working towards getting to a carbon neutral stance in their supply chain and in their business operations.
So what we hear a lot about carbon credits is definitely not restricted to soil credits, is questions about reliability. Companies asking, okay, I'm going to pay for this ton to be removed from the atmosphere. How can I be sure that that ton is actually a ton that's been removed? And how can I be sure that it's going to stay removed? Tell us how Indigo tackles those problems.
Yeah, it's key to the conversation. How do I trust the carbon offset? A carbon offset at the end of the day is a financial instrument that represents the behavior we all want to encourage and see taken. And as so that the confidence in that instrument is key to its value to the buyers and sellers of it. Indigo's taken a path of aligning with third-party registries. So Vera, that has a global reach, but is very active in the European countries. Climate Action Reserve, which is very active in the North American countries. We've partnered with both of those third-party registries and have approved methodologies that are really about making sure that we're capturing the right data, we're analyzing it in the correct way, we're auditing it in a regular cadence, and then we're stamping those carbon credits with registry numbers from these third-party registries, so that we're trying to meet the highest bar possible for the data that goes into the carbon credit release. And we're excited about that, those partnerships. And we're in our early stages here as we go through our first year of carbon credit audits and creation at Indigo. And it'll be a learning and improvement process for us as the data sets grow. And we'll be partnering with multiple entities, NGOs, the registries, like I said, different R&D groups, so that we can continuously improve our processes and make sure we're reaching the highest bar possible for rigor and scientific quality, and aligning with the processes that are fairly well entrenched in the carbon offset markets already. I mean, there have been decades of improvement in scientific growth in those markets, and we're tucking in underneath a lot of good work that's been done in other areas.
Great, thanks, Ben. I think this area, as you said, it's very new. It's also fascinating. We know the potential is huge. So I'm going to be watching what you do at Indigo with great interest, and really hoping that you and all the other players in this field are able to deliver on the potential of farms to draw down carbon. It could be a really significant part of the solution to climate change. So Ben, thank you so much again for coming to Green Biz Studio today to discuss these things. My name's Jim Giles. Thanks everyone for listening and watching.
Thank you very much, Jim.